right, welcome back, guys, to another episode of our HU Flow podcast. I'm your host, Marilyn, and your host, Steven. And today we have James with us. So, James, tell us about yourself. What year are you, and what are you studying?
Okay, well, my name is James Evan Shuler, and my major is biotechnology. And basically, what biotechnology is, we take living things with living tissue, with like whether it be cells, a specific type of cell, stem cells, and so on and so forth, and appropriate that living tissue for technological reasons. So whether it be for like pharmaceuticals, for gene therapy, for food technology, stuff like that. So it differentiates itself from just a biology major because usually with biology you just learn a lot about like theory in a way, and it's really questionable how you apply that after your bachelor's degree unless you're going for like your like unless you're trying to become a doctor or so on and so forth. But with biotechnology, it's like you can get a job in a lab like just right out of the gate. Like you can become like a biotechnician or something like that. You know what I mean? I'm currently a senior. This is my fourth year. I'm in my last semester currently. So long as everything goes how it's supposed to, with my grades, I have no question about that. But you never know. As long as everything goes fine, this semester should be my last one, and I'll have my bachelor's degree in biotechnology. So yeah.
Wow, well, congratulations. You are our first biotech guest, I believe, on HU Flow. So that was a great rundown of what the degree is. But James, I want to ask you, why did you choose biotechnology?
Okay, so when I first got to HU, my major was integrative sciences with a concentration in biology. And the reason why I chose that was because ever since I was little, I've always been into like the human body and animals and like stuff like that. So I was like, biology is the way to go in my eyes, right? But like I said, with biology, like it's not really like lab focused. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people going to biology are usually going to med school afterwards, and like that's not me. And I knew at the time when I was in my freshman year, I wanted to do something with like either gene therapy or medical marijuana or something like that. And I talked to my student success counselor, I think that's what they call it here. And he was like, well, it sounds like to me you should go change from that to biotechnology. So that's why I'm currently in the major I am in now.
Nice. So let me roll it back a little bit to high school. When you were a senior in high school, so I guess maybe about 4 years ago now. Wow, time be flying.
Hmm.
What did your senior year look like for you? Did you know you wanted to go into science at that point? And what colleges were you looking at besides Harrisburg?
Okay, so my senior year of high school it was a lot. I was really confused, to be honest. I knew I wanted to do something in the sciences because, like I said, ever since I was young, I was into science. And my friends, like my friend group, were also into science. Like my friend Alex also went for biology at Drexel University, and my friend Dart, he's going for chemical engineering. So I knew I wanted to do something in science, but I wasn't really sure. And like to be honest, like the world after high school kind of scared me a lot. You know what I mean? Even after I had applied to like all these different colleges, like I was just I had an anxiety because like when you're in school, like your life is school. You know what I mean? And if you're working, it's just like school, work, and just your social life. But like after that, like I was just I just had no idea what life was going to be like. Um, I had applied to 8 colleges. I got accepted to all of them, and I got a full ride to 2 of them. One of them being an academic scholarship from HU, where I'm at currently, and I got a full scholarship to East Stroudsburg University. And some of the other colleges I applied to were Robert Morris University, um, Wilkes University, the pharmacy school in Wilkes University, the University of the Sciences in Philadelphia, um, and the other ones I don't really remember, but I got into them, and that made me feel good about myself. I was like, I just must be intelligent. You know what I mean? But yeah, that was my high school experience. I mean, but like when I was like reaching graduation, like I didn't like it's supposed to be a party, like yeah, I'm about to graduate. But like I just said, like I wasn't clear on how my future was gonna go, even though I was going to college. And on top of that, my mom could no longer afford the house we had lived in for such a long time. So while I was approaching graduation, I was also coming to the reality that I would never be able to return to the house that I had grown up in. You know what I mean? That was also very difficult for me. So like we were packing everything up, and the summer before I came to HU, I actually spent the entire summer at my best friend's place, and we had a good time. Of course, I had a good time with their family and stuff. But but yeah, it was a difficult-ish time. You know what I mean? And on top of that, I was struggling with some mental health issues and stuff like that. But yeah, that was my senior high school experience.
And one more quick question before I pass it on to Steven. Where are you originally from?
Okay, so originally from, okay, I always give two answers when people ask me that. So I was born in Queens, New York, New York. But I only lived there for about 2 years because like once I was like two and a half, my mom and my dad were like, we don't want him to live in this type of environment, so let's move to the Poconos. So I spent most of my life in the Pocono Mountains. So I consider that my hometown, even though I was born in New York.
I'm just a little, and that was interesting to hear that you're from Queens originally. Like
Hmm.
I've always heard that saying, once a New Yorker, always a New Yorker. But if you call the Poconos your home, I respect that as well. So how was life growing up for you in the Poconos? Because that's a really interesting take for me.
Okay, before I get into that, like I know like a lot of like foreigners or people who live in America are always like, oh, I want to go to New York or I want to see Brooklyn Bridge and all that stuff. Like I've been to New York, like even though I didn't grow up there, I've been to New York back and forth, like when I was young, and like it's just not all that to me because it's like it's too loud, in my opinion. It's too cluttered, like it's just not my thing. You know what I mean? Like in the Poconos, it's just like it's like a lot of forest. It's the winters are really really cold, but you get used to it. Like there'll be blizzards or whatever. The summers are beautiful though. Um, you kind of have to like drive really far to get to places though. It's like a mixture between like rural and suburban. You know what I mean? So like to get to a Walmart where I live, it took like a whole 17 minutes. Same thing to get to my school. But growing up in the Poconos was really nice. I didn't really appreciate it when I was growing up there, but like like when you live in something like that's just your life, so like you don't appreciate it that much. But it was nice. My best friend was lived two houses down. Her name was Jordan, and I would always go down to Jordan's house ever since we met in kindergarten, and I basically grew up with her and her family. Like whenever they had like a party or Fourth of July, like they do fireworks, like I'd be there. You know what I mean? And we have good times. And my mom would come over too. Like our families like would intermingle, and it was fun. And yeah, so I enjoyed that. Um, Growing up, I mean, I was a really sensitive kid. Like ever since I was like in kindergarten, I'd cry all the time when something like if somebody messed with me or I thought something was unfair, I'd cry. You know what I mean? I guess I'm still kind of sensitive, not to that extent, but I think being sensitive in a way can be kind of like a benefit because it's like when you're sensitive, you empathize with people like more easily. You know what I mean? So it's like I feel like I made a lot of connections with people being like vulnerable emotionally and being able to communicate with them and having it back and forth. So I like being sensitive. Like that's who I am. And growing up in the Poconos, the Poconos is basically my life. I mean, that's been yeah. I guess that's what I have to say on that.
I mean, dude, it sounded like the Poconos was the vibe for you as a kid, and you enjoyed your childhood, and I think that's a good thing to have. You got to have your ups and downs, but of course, if your childhood was majority positive, I think that will play a good outlook for the rest of life.
Mhm.
So more kudos to you. I mean, I've been to Poconos once or twice. It's a really beautiful, all the forests around there. So you talked a lot about your childhood. So let's kind of dive also into your transition, kind of going to a senior in high school to now a freshman. How was that for you? Were you nervous? Were you feeling like the sense of culture shock because you're going to from an area from like the Poconos to now Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, the capital?
Okay. So, like I said, there was a type of anxiety of just like doing something new, going somewhere new, you know, mingling with totally different people than you were born with, you know what I mean? So that was definitely there. Like even the first day, like I didn't really talk to my roommates, but like I remember like having a hard time going to sleep and like tears welling up in my eyes because like I was so far away from my mother and my sister, and it was gonna be that way for an extended period of time, and like that just hadn't been the case for for such a while, you know what I mean? So I was definitely anxious. As for culture shock, not so much because even though Pennsylvania, it seems like a very white place, my high school, like elementary school, middle school, high school, like my public school experience, like um, my district was very culturally diverse. Like I believe it was like if you look at my school's website now, it says like 36% black, like 30 something percent white, and then everyone else is like Hispanic, Asian, like, you know what I mean? So like and even in my personal friend group, I I had many different types of people in my friend group. Like I had white friends, I have Hispanic friends, I have black friends, and it's the same as now. You know what I mean? So like when it comes to different types of people and culture shock, like I didn't experience that. And also, like I said before, it's easy for me to like connect with people and like get to know them and stuff like that. Um, Academically speaking, my first year of college was really easy. I got like all A's in both semesters, I believe. My freshman year. Um, I even though I got very close with my roommates in freshman year, like I still felt very alone. You know what I mean? Like it's very it's weird to articulate. Like I in freshman year I was diagnosed with depression, so that could also be a reason why those feelings were coming onto me. You know what I mean? Um, but even though it wasn't my first year wasn't as shocking as you might think, like cultural shock wise. Like I did have periods of like depression, of loneliness. I was trying like just like everybody else, like our age, like I was trying to find somebody to be with, and it was difficult because like how can I explain it? So like since I'm gay, it's like I was trying to find other gay people around here, and I wasn't being successful at it, and like I couldn't go to any like gay bars or anything because I was only 18 at the time. So like I had to like rely on people around me to be like, oh, this person's gay. You should talk to them. This and that. You know what I mean. But you know, like nothing would ever really work out. But um, but yeah, like freshman year had its ups and downs, but you know, I got through it. Here I am now. So
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, I mean that's good to hear. And it's in a sense that kind of actually and that actually kind of comes to another question I had. So this idea of relationships in college, because you brought up the fact that since you're gay, it was kind of hard for you to find those who are like also gay that you can like ask and see what happens with it. Was that always like even now, is that still a struggle with you for college, or like has it gotten better with time?
Um, it's definitely gotten better with time. So when I was in high school and like my freshman year, I just always felt like once I just find another gay guy and like we'll find each other attractive, like you're just gonna click. And like that was not the case whatsoever because like I've met gay people and bisexual people here at the school, and like I went in with expectations of things going to be easy, and like as everybody knows, like relationships, whether it be friendship wise or romantically speaking, like it doesn't ever go how you expect it, whether it be for the positive or the negative. And I learned that there's more to people than just their sexuality, if that makes sense. And as I've gone through freshman year to senior year, like up until now, like it would make me feel bad about myself because I couldn't find anyone. Because I used to be like, what's wrong with me? Is it my personality? Is it how I look? Like that was a huge struggle for me. But like getting here now, like I've kind of learned not to tie my self worth to that type of stuff. You know what I mean? Um, I learned to not take it as seriously, if that makes sense. I currently do have a boyfriend.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. He's very nice to me. You know, we have our good times. He's a fantastic cook. He takes care of me. You know, I like to think I take care of him as well. And and yeah, and like with him in my life, it's like he how can I describe it? He helps me view life in a different way as well because it's like everyone is different. And like when you're with somebody for a long enough time, you start to see uh, how they live their life and how they view life in general. And you know what I mean? So like he's been teaching me things. I've been teaching him things about himself and him about myself and so on and so forth. So yeah, yeah. I guess if I've gotten any character development during college, it's been some of that. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Oh, dude, that's awesome to hear. I'm happy for you, truly, that you found someone, you're learning, and just becoming like a better person from it. And then the experience just sounds like it's amazing for you. So my last question I'll ask before I pass it on to Marilyn is kind of focused on the concept of clicks here. So we always ask our guests a variety of questions around clicks, but I just want to know what's your overall opinion on them? Do you see them as a positive or negative? Do you have another perspective that you want to look at it from? Like, how do you see clicks?
Okay, so I feel like clicks are natural, right? Because it's like once you get acquainted with a certain group of people and a certain type of people, it's like for a lot of people, you're just like they're just like, okay, these are my people. This is my social group. I'm gonna look out for them. I'm gonna vibe with them. You know what I mean? Because like realistically speaking, we can only like care about so many people, and like emotionally invest in so many people. You know what I mean? But that being said, cliques in college are not what I expected them to be. So when I was in high school, like I said before, like I had a lot of different people in my friend groups, and when I looked around, I'd see that in other friend groups as well. Like there'd be like people with different beliefs in a certain friend group, or like people of different races. Like you'd have black people, Hispanic people, white people, so on and so forth, right? But I feel like when I got to college, when I got to HU, I feel like to me, I noticed that like cliques were more like stereotypical. Like I saw like groups of like white kids hanging out with only white kids and like black kids hanging out with only black kids or like people of like a certain political affiliation vibing with those people or like people who are gamers only vibing with those people. And in a way, I could kind of understand it in the way that maybe when they were in high school, they didn't have the chance to see people that were like them. So like it's like you gravitate to those people, or maybe it's the opposite. Like in high school, that was their clique, and now they're here, and now they're looking for the same thing. But I don't know. I guess I had the expectation that with high school or with college being like the place of diverse ideas and diverse people, that like it would be either just as diverse or even more so than it was in my high school. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And at first, it was a criticism that I had of HU or like the student population at HU. But after talking to like my friends in other colleges, apparently like it happens there too. Like my friend Dart was telling me at his college, I forget what his college is called, but like he said it's very much the same. Like the Asian kids will very much hang out with the Asian kids, and like the white kids will hang out with the white kids, and so on and so forth. And I don't have like I don't think that's a horrible thing. It just like I think it's beneficial for a person to like just meet different people, you know, like hear different ideas. Like even when like it makes you mad or like when it makes you feel uncomfortable or like you know what I mean? It's just cool to meet new people and like and I know that it can be difficult because it's been difficult for me at times. Like I've gotten to my fair share of arguments and like stuff like that, especially with people that I have to like communicate with on like a daily-ish basis. You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, I guess that's my opinion on clicks. I think they're natural. I think in college, I'd like to see more intermingling between different groups of people. But yeah, when it comes to my clicks, like they're still culturally diverse. I like to think because I just have all types of people surrounding me. You know what I mean? And I care for them very much. So
I think that's good. I think that's really good. I mean, I'm a big fan of putting myself or just individuals in uncomfortable situations so that they can learn from it and benefit from it. Now, I understand not everyone's not ready for that, but it's
hmm
always a good thing to try that. In my 4 years of college, I was never into one specific group. There was a time where I was at one point. I could say that
hmm
for sure. But then once I said like, okay, the group ain't it, I expanded, and did I lose friends from that? Because that's another factor to consider.
hmm
Yeah, I did, but you know what? I gained knowledge in many others, so it's not something. It's a negative, it is okay to outgrow people, but it's not okay to stay in them. So I'll leave that at that. So Marilyn, on to you.
I'll just add that in a personal survey of my friend group, 8 out of 9 of us were not still friends with the same people that we met our first 2 or so weeks of college. You're going to outgrow your initial friend groups, and that's okay.
Yeah.
So, James, to be honest, I hadn't really thought of a question because I was just like filling all that in. There was a lot of good stuff there. Mainly, I definitely agree. Diversity, man. I mean, coming from an area that is very white, very not diverse, I really appreciated what I considered diversity at Harrisburg University. I know it's different for everybody. But anyway, circling back around to you and your biotechness, at Harrisburg University, we are required to complete 3 experiential learning semesters. So I was curious if you wanted to talk about any research that you conducted during your project 1 or 2, maybe that was a standout to you.
Okay, so my project 1 and 2 revolved around something called bacteriophages, right? And you can call them phages for short. And basically what phages are, they're basically viruses that only parasitize bacteria. So they don't invade or attack animals. They don't invade or attack like humans, plants. They only attack bacteria. And the reason why phages are so interesting is since they only target bacteria, we can use them to treat bacterial infections, right? Using phages for this purpose is called bacteriophage therapy, or phage therapy for short, right? And this practice has been used for about a little over 100 years now, especially in the former Soviet nations like the Ukraine, Russia, and so on and so forth. I think it might also be used in France as well, but it's been used in the former Soviet countries for a while. And the reason why it's so beneficial is because phages are very specific to the type of bacteria that they target. So if you have a phage that only targets E. coli bacteria, it's only going to target E. coli bacteria. It's not going to target any other bacteria that might be important to your microbiome. You know, like that. That's one of the reasons why people prefer bacteriophage therapy instead of antibiotics. Because when you like ingest antibiotics, it's kind of just like throwing a whole bunch of bombs and you don't know where it's going to land. You know what I mean? Because antibiotics will kill like the good bacteria, the bad bacteria, the opportunistic bacteria. Phage will only kill the infectious one that you're trying to target. Now, that being said, like phage therapy has not been normalized in the United States. And the reason for that is because it has to go through a certain amount of trials for phage therapy to become like normalized, I guess I can say, as a therapeutic drug. And since viruses technically aren't living, they are a biological agent, and people aren't too how can I say, they aren't too like relaxed with injecting a biological agent within people. You know what I mean? Even though it would be harmless technically, because your renal system would like wash it out through your urine and like break it down. Especially if there's no more of that bacteria for the virus to parasitize, then it's just floating and your body's just gonna like clean it out. You know what I mean? But since the virus thing is kind of iffy, people are thinking about maybe isolating the protein that causes the destruction of the bacteria that is synthesized within the viruses, which are called endolysin. But even with that, like trials have still been going on, and bacteriophage therapy still hasn't been normalized. Usually, the use of phage therapy has only been used in like private practice physician type areas because like they have more freedom to experiment on how they're going to treat certain infections or certain diseases and stuff like that. And because like when you're like in like when you're working in a hospital, you have to get approval. And like I said before, like with something that hasn't been technically approved by the FDA yet, it's like they're gonna be like, well, maybe let's try these antibiotics first, even though they might not be too useful against the infection in question. You know what I mean? So basically, my project 1 and 2 had to do with comparing the the time efficiency of both antibiotics and bacteriophage therapy on a specific bacteria, and my model organism was E. coli bacteria. I wasn't able to carry out an experiment because of the COVID stuff that's been going on. But I did a whole bunch of research, and I got a lot of research that backed my hypothesis. Now, I wasn't able to test the hypothesis, but you know what I mean. It's whatever. But that was my project 1 and 2.
That's super interesting. Cool. Yeah, so at HU, one of the requirements for graduation is doing a project 1 and 2, and then as well as an internship. Most colleges require a completion of an internship, but at HU, we like to push it a step beyond and do a project 1 and a project 2. So that is that is one of the many unique aspects of HU.
Yeah.
Did I say many? Anyway.
Yeah,
yeah. Just that stroke tastes good. Anyway.
I mean, as for my internship, like our school has an aquaponics center in our student union building. So I did my internship with them, and basically, what aquaponics is like we use the ammonia from fish waste, and we take the ammonia from fish waste, and we have two sets of bacteria, nitrifying bacteria, and they will turn the ammonia into nitrogenous gases that can be food for the plants, right? And that helps the plants grow in fake soil, which is called like growth media. And the reason why aquaponics and hydroponics is so useful is because like in areas in the world where they don't have soil to grow crops in, if you have growth media with food that is being created for the plants by the fish waste, then you can grow crops anywhere that need it. You know what I mean? Basically, what my internship had to do with it was that with the two bacteria that turns the ammonia into nitrogen gas that can be food for the plants, we were going to take DNA from the two bacteria and splice it into one bacteria. So that the school can save money on buying two different species of bacteria, and that we can synthesize the bacteria genetically in the school and just use it to keep growing plants. You know what I mean? And if we were successful, we could maybe even go commercial with it. You know what I mean? Yeah, we got really far in the internship. However, it got cut short because I was doing it in March of last year. And of course, March of last year, school had to shut down because of COVID and all that. So it got stopped abruptly. Who knows if it's going to get picked back up? You know what I mean? But when it ended, we were in the steps of taking the DNA from one of the bacteria and incorporating it into like a DNA clone of the other one. So the DNA for both the steps will be in one bacteria. You know what I mean? So yeah, that was my internship.
That is super cool. But sucks on timing.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Well, that's a perfect segue into my next question, which you've already done a lot of applied things with biotech. Where do you see yourself going when you graduate at the end of this semester?
It's funny you say that. So before I get into that, the last summer I was asking myself that question because I was like, this is gonna be my last year. What am I gonna do after college? Like I was basically in the same mindset that I was at the end of high school. You know what I mean? And in a way, I still kind of am because like I'm coming to an end of another stage of my life and entering another one. You know what I mean? And in the summer, I was like, I applied to this medical marijuana job at this place called Grassroots Cannabis, and I didn't get the job, and I hurt my feelings because I was like, oh my gosh, like, um, but as for where do I think I'm going after this, like, to be honest, I'm not really sure because, to be honest, even though I've done this experimental stuff with Project 1, Project 2, and all my science classes and stuff like that, like, it's unfortunate, but like, I've kind of lost a passion for science in a way, like, because I feel like growing up, we see all these different concepts like photosynthesis or like space travel and stuff like that. But when you actually sit down and you take college courses on it, it's more complicated than what you see in like a YouTube video or something, right? So the process of like doing experiments takes very long. There's like different protocols you have to follow and stuff like that. And if you mess up one thing, it can set you back very far, right? And whenever I'd be in the process of doing one of these experiments, um, I didn't really find myself enjoying it that much. It just felt a lot like work, you know what I mean? And I kind of fell out of love with the scientific process, if that makes sense. And with that being how it is, it's like it makes me wonder where my next step is going to take me. You know what I mean? Like I'm currently a tutor at HU, and I currently work at Rite Aid, right? But I don't know where I'm going next. I don't know if I'm going to go to grad school, and if I do go to grad school, am I going to do something with science again, or am I going to do something that really connects with me? Because one thing I really like doing is I like to write in my free time. I haven't written like a very long story recently, but I do like to write. I love creative writing. I also like jobs where I get to communicate with people. Before COVID, I used to work with HU Student Services Department, and I used to like get to work with a lot of the staff in the school, as well as a lot of the grad students. And I really enjoyed that. So if I go to grad school, it's probably going to be like something with like communications or writing or English, or maybe even linguistics, something like that. I when it comes to the field that I'm currently in, I feel like the only way I could do something that's even relevant to science is if I get a job with something to do with medical marijuana, because like I find that stuff really interesting. I didn't really like look into it until this summer. Um, but even though it's not the stuff isn't like FDA certified and stuff like that, there is like information that's out there that says like CBD and THC and different and oils like that. They do help people with like fatigue, their appetite, depression. Some therapies help even like reduce tumor sizes and stuff like that. And I feel like the fact that like colleges can get a hold of cocaine and do tests on that, but we can't get a hold of marijuana and like do stuff with that. I feel like to me that's kind of ridiculous. You know what I mean? So like I think doing something in the field of marijuana would be really cool. But other than that, like I don't see myself participating in a STEM job long term and feeling fulfilled. You know what I mean? Um, so I guess if I were to say I had for like a 2 year plan, I'd say for the next year I'm probably gonna work. You know what I mean? And then and get some money in my pocket. And then if I do decide to go to grad school, whether it be in HU or somewhere else, I'll have money in my pocket to do whatever I want to do. Um, or I mean, just jump into the workforce, and then that'll be my life. You know what I mean? I don't want to. I don't want to do something that doesn't make me happy, because for a long time it's like I felt like I was doing. A lot of my choices were made because people told me to do it. At first, I wasn't going to come to HU. I was going to go to Wilkes University because I got into their pharmacy program, and that's what I really, really, really wanted to do, right? But a lot of people around me told me I should go to HU or East Stroudsburg because of this full scholarship thing, right? And that's a reasonable thing to tell me, but like I felt like I was getting like a lot of pressure to do something that I didn't want to do. And the first couple of years of being in HU, I wasn't happy. Like a lot of the time I was like, I wish I had gone somewhere else. I wish I had made the choice for myself. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna try and incorporate me making choices for myself and exercising the freedoms that I do have, so that I can live the happy life that I deserve. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah, that's so important. Yes. Oh my goodness. Well, I wish you good luck on your journey for sure.
Thank you.
Um, I just have one more question before I pass it over to Steven again. Um, you've mentioned a lot about your time at HU and decisions, projects, all that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
In sort of about assimilating into from high school to college, what that freshman experience is like. But I like to ask people if they got involved in extracurricular activities at HU, such as clubs or any after school things, and what they might say to incoming freshmen.
Okay. So extracurriculars. Did I do any extracurriculars? I mean, there's this thing called the Journal Club for like the NISC students, the Integrative Sciences students. And technically anybody can be a part of it, but it was mainly made for science kids to practice presenting their findings, right? Or presenting just scientific journals in general. And I was a part of that. And basically what you do is they'd have you pick an article, or they'd pick an article for you, or if you were doing a project one or project two, then you'd use that and make a presentation, right? And the presentation would have to be like 30 minutes to an hour, I believe. And you have to give the background, give the summary, the abstract of what you were doing, and so on and so forth. It was supposed to be really formal and get you prepared for the real world when you're in the scientific field and you actually have something to present. And I was a part of that. Funny story. Oh my gosh, it was so embarrassing. So people, like, I joined the club and people like, because in HU, and I assume this is how it is in other colleges, like for a club to exist, like there has to be like a professor or staff member to like sponsor it in a way. But in Journal Club, there were multiple professors, right? So when I joined, like multiple professors had expectations of me doing very, very well or giving a very, very good presentation, right? So one day after somebody had given their presentation, people were like, or one of the professors was like, okay, who's going to present next week? It was really quiet. So I was like, I'll present, right? And people were like, oh, I can't wait for you to, I can't wait for your presentation. It's going to be so good. You should present on this. You should present on that. Yada, 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 right? And I was excited as well. And like, I felt flattered that people felt that way about me. And I picked an article, a scientific article about this thing called, I think it's sRNA, right? sRNA is basically like, so we have genes, right? We have different things in our body that codes for certain traits, like oh whether somebody's gonna have brown eyes or blue eyes or stuff like that. But we also have there's genetics and there's epigenetics, and basically epigenetics is like the turning on and off of certain genes, right? So basically, for example, like um, until you reach puberty, like the mechanisms that cause you to like develop secondary sex characteristics, like whether they be breasts or broader shoulders, are turned off. But once you get to a certain age, they get turned on, and like the mechanism by which that happens is like sRNA and different types of RNA, right? And that's what I was going to present on. Now, the article I chose was very, very complicated and hard to understand, and on top of that, I had a whole bunch of other stuff to do. So I basically procrastinated this presentation till like the night of. And I was just like, okay, fuck it. Like, I'm just gonna tell this professor that I'm not gonna have anything, I'm not gonna have a finished product. So I messaged her the night before and she was like, no, I want you to present it anyway, this and that. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then the morning before the presentation, I went to her place and she was to her office. And then she was saying the same thing, like, I want you to present. You're gonna learn from it. This, and that. I'll look through it with you. We can, you don't. It doesn't have to be a presentation. You can just talk about it. And I knew it was gonna be a disaster. I knew it was gonna be a disaster. Like I'm never nervous about stuff like presentation wise. Like that. Like I'm usually a good presenter, but like I didn't know what I was talking about. I didn't have a finished presentation. I barely had finished the article, and that's another reason why science is kind of annoying because like these articles are so overly verbose and hard to understand. But yeah, so I'm in a room with people excited to see what I have to present. I'm nervous. Professors are there. Professors I don't even know are in the who that are in the room are in the room, and the whole classroom is full. Ugh. And I start off and I'm like, my presentation isn't finished, so like don't expect anything fantastic. And then one of the professors is like, well, have faith in yourself, this and that. I was like, okay. I turned on my computer. my wallpaper is like this very muscular shirtless guy, and I was like, oh my, I was like, ignore him, please, ignore him, and like all the professors like, and like all the kids were like just dumbfounded, or not all the kids, all the students were just dumbfounded, and like only one person was smiling at the picture, and I was like, okay, well, then I turned to my presentation, and the first I was like, okay, this is what the article's called. This is the background. And I was like, well, that's all I have for the presentation, so I guess I'm just gonna wing it for now. And then I was like, so this is whatever RNA, this and that. This is what they found. And I was like, yeah, I guess that's all I have. Now, all of that was only like 5 minutes, and like I said before, it had to been like from 30 minutes to like an hour. So like I'm nervous, and then like everybody else kind of had a copy of my presentation too, because like when somebody's going, like everybody else gets a copy so like they can follow along or they can read beforehand, but like or like read along while you're giving your presentation. And then people are like, oh well, like they're helping me on my presentation, even though like they just read it. So like it was just a weird scenario. But like finally the hell ended. And then people were like, oh, don't worry, you did good. I'm like, I didn't do good. Like I understand you're trying to be nice to me, but that was one of the worst experiences of my entire life. Like, but that was the journal club. As for any other clubs I was in, oh, I was in this thing called Papyrus and Pens, right? And that also wasn't around for very long because of COVID. And it was basically like people who enjoyed creative writing would get together and we'd talk about different ideas and we'd bring things we've written and we'd give it to everyone, and like the week later we'd give each other like feedback and like criticisms and like what we can change, what we liked, stuff like that. um that wasn't too horrible. It was just like nothing's perfect. Getting criticism for like stuff I wrote hurt. Like I'm not gonna lie, it was good criticism, but like when you hear it, like it hurts your feelings a little bit because like when you make something creative wise, it's like that's your baby, you know what I mean? And they're basically like, well, this part doesn't make sense, or like you need to change this, and like like the negative stuff sticks with you more than the positive stuff, you know what I mean? And yeah, and like when you read somebody else's stuff and you have to tell them what to change and like the negatives of their stuff, like that didn't make me feel good about myself either. So, but I mean, it also taught me to take criticism. You know what I mean? And like criticism is important as well. But like that club, that wasn't the type of club where it's like, oh, we're gonna have a good time. It was more of like a professional type thing, if that makes sense. But other than Papyrus and Pens and Journal Club, I wasn't really in extracurricular stuff. However, I did work for the school. Like I said before, I'm still a tutor. I tutor anything that has to do with English. Like I help people with essays. I give people writing advice. Um, and I also tutor people with biology. Not so much biology anymore because, like I said before, I'm kind of science is kind of whatever for me now. But on top of tutoring, my favorite job at HU that I've had, and my favorite job I've ever had, was working with student services. So every Saturday, like the grad students classes would be in session, and the professors would need, like the grad professors would come in and they would have to receive their their class lists. So I'll be the person they would come to and get their class lists, and and if somebody would forget their class list, I would go and give it to them. And while the grad students would come in and out, if they had a question, they would come to me. Like, yo, I have to go. I need this done. Where do I go? I'd be like, okay, go to the registrations office, go to the international business office, or so on and so forth. When there were events, I would help out with the events. There was an open house, a grad student open house. I like all the food came. I organized like all the sodas, the food all by myself. I put all like the chairs together. All like I did that all by myself. You know what I mean? Um, I got to talk to people. Like I really really enjoyed that job, and I would make $100 a week doing that because it was like I would get paid $10 an hour, and I would work doing that $10 each, like 10 hours each Saturday. But I really enjoyed that. But And then there's the internship I did with the school, of course. And I also would monitor the school's computer lab. That was easy money because like barely anybody would come into the computer lab, especially since the school requires everyone to have a computer anyways, you know what I mean? Like the only people who would come into the computer lab were people who had like broken computers. You know what I mean? Or like people who just like knew me and they knew I was in there, so they would come in and just talk to me. But that was also easy money. But other than that, like I didn't really do any um extracurriculars. Oh, I just thought of something. I uh I got the opportunity to go to Brazil the summer after my sophomore year. And basically what we did was the whole point was to study a very unique type of spider called the Analomous Xenia spider. And what makes this type of spider unique is that most spiders are asocial, right? They're either asocial or antisocial. Like they make their webs, they catch food by themselves. You know what I mean? They're not social animals. They're very independent. And like if they see another spider, they're either gonna fight it or mate with it, and then like if you're a guy, maybe die afterwards. You know what I mean? Like they're not very yeah, spiders aren't social at all. Like they're like, this is my space, you know. But the Analomous Xenia spiders like are rare because they're a social spider. And if you like walk into like the tropical rainforest, you'll see like these very intricate web structures, very large, that have been created by these huge families and colonies of Analomous Xenia spiders. And it's like they'll work and work and work together, right? And it's like they're like 95% female and 5% male. And like the only reason why the males exist is to like it's like fucking have babies because like they're kind of useless for anything else. Like the women have the kids and they're the ones who make the webs, who coordinate making the webs. Like the male spiders don't even do much. Like they're very small and very useless, and all they do is like have sex. And but that being said, since they're very like colony oriented, there's a lot of inbreeding that goes on, and with inbreeding comes like what's the word for it? It's called like a like genetic homogeneity, right? So it's like every time.
Asian?
Yeah. So like every time animals like have kids, right? The DNA is shuffled, right? And like genetic diversity is very important because like it introduces new traits into the gene pool. So like say for example, like if a new disease or a new hardship comes along, right? There might be a population with a trait that can like survive that, you know what I mean? But with incest and inbreeding, it kind of prevents that genetic diversity. And on top of that, it amplifies the bad stuff in our DNA. So like, for example, like I believe like something like Huntington's disease, like if it runs in your family and you also like uh were to like procreate with somebody close to you for whatever reason, then there is going to be like an even higher risk of that of your child having Huntington's disease because like that trait is being expressed more, right? So there are times when populations of these spiders just die off because they just become so inept at living because of the constant inbreeding. And on top of that, the species can be too tolerant, right? So like whenever you think of like animals, right? Try like living in communities and trying to find food, they're going to fight off invaders, right? And try to protect each other. But like these spiders are like in a way too social and like too tolerant. So like if a foreign spider or an ant colony tries to like take their food and destroy their webs, like they just let them. Like they don't fight. It's very rare for them to fight back. And but that being said, whenever their web gets destroyed by like a predator or rain, like they'll like create their web structures like completely anew within like a day. Like they're very hardworking animals. But we went to Brazil and we went sightseeing. And the second week we were there, we went into the forest and we hiked up through the forest and we studied the spiders. We studied how they made colonies. It was really fun. It was very humid. Like you would walk outside and my glasses would fog up instantly. Like that's how humid it was. Like if you had asthma, like it would probably irritate you. Um, but the first week we took like cultural exchange classes. So like we'd be in the classroom. We took some math modeling. We took a math modeling class. We took a population statistical analysis class. And while doing all of that, we went to different restaurants. We had a good time. We went to the beach a lot. It was so nice. Brazil is such a beautiful country. Of course, we didn't go to like any of the places in Brazil that were impoverished, which is like a lot of the country, but you know, that's not all the country is. Um, we had a good time. Brazil was a good time. I also got the opportunity to go to Chesapeake Bay in Maryland, and we went fossil hunting. We went to different fossil museums. We went to different restaurants there. We learned about the history of Maryland. Um, and I also got the opportunity to go to Utah. So our school every year they'll have a trip to Puerto Rico, but we couldn't go last year because apparently Puerto Rico had suffered an earthquake before, and like the place where the school usually goes, we couldn't go because it was destroyed. So instead, we went to Utah, and we basically traveled all through Utah, and we also went to Colorado one day, and we went to different national parks, and we got souvenirs, and we learned about different times of history, different histories of Utah. We saw like the arches and stuff like that. We had a good time. We were in an RV the whole time. We had good times. We told jokes, and uh, and yeah, I guess one thing that I do like about HU is that they give you the opportunity to not only meet new people and experience new cultures in the building itself, but it gives you the opportunity to like travel, you know, like and basically for no price, you know what I mean, other than the price you're paying to go to HU. But like I said, I have like a full scholarship. So yeah. So as for extracurriculars, there you go.
Those are amazing. Yes, we haven't heard from too many people that have gotten to go on some of the trips that HU offers. So thank you for sharing that. Steven, do you have any more questions?
Couple notes. One, I didn't know it was that easy to use cocaine for science experiments, but okay, that's brilliant.
Yeah, you
Um,
chloroform too, actually.
That was a surprise to me as well.
okay. I don't. The argument that like the difference between weed and cocaine, one can kill you.
Exactly.
Like, like I don't see the argument other than that. But like, it's very interesting just to hear about so many new things I didn't know about. 'Cause I remember like you mentioned the trips, and I know like usually it's head by Dr. Fury,
Mm-hmm.
and Dr. Fury, for those at home, he is a professor here at the university. I forgot what he was his department head of. I forgot. Is it in integrated science? That's the
Yeah,
department.
he's in integrative sciences, and he's also kind of sort of in IMED sometimes, but mostly integrative sciences.
Yeah, it's kind of sometimes. He's only every once in balloons, but
Yeah.
yeah. So Dr. Robert Fury hosts these trips. They've been to many different places. Brazil is a common one. Utah was the RV trip. I think you went with Allison Bernard, right? And
Yes.
yeah, I remember like I saw those photos they were posting on Facebook of that. That was kind of cool. You guys tried an RV. I was kind of jealous. Um, I had good vibes though, so cool. Um, and there's many other trips. There's also I think one went to Iceland with Dr. Albert Sarvis. That's his team in the geospatial. That was pretty interesting. So trips here happen. They are very unique, and if you kind of just know your teachers real well, they'll probably say, "Hey, dude, you should try this," or come with us. And for a low cost, because you're already paying for tuition, so it's like just have money for traveling and make sure all your accommodations are acquired. So my last question before we just close it out is: there anyone you want to like just special shout out to on the podcast? That comes to mind, James.
Shout outs. Okay, there's a few shout outs. Shout out my friend Giraldi. He's always there for me when I need to talk to my friends and ex roommates, John and Michael. They put up with me and like they're there for me as well. Um, I also want to shout out. There's this band I've been into. They're called Dirty Loops. They're really good. They're like a pop fusion band. I listen to them whenever I'm down. They bring my spirits up. And lastly, oh my gosh, I'm gonna seem like such a nerd, but like Hajime Isayama, like oh my god, he's the author of Attack on Titan, and I love Attack on Titan. Like all these anime people are on it now, but I've been reading the manga since high school, so. But yeah, I think he's a pretty great person. I think he's very creative and stuff like that. So I guess those are the people I want to shout out.
I respect it. I respect it. If you not look, if anime didn't change your life, then what you ain't watching
Yup.
nothing.
Yep.
I'm just keeping that argument to infinity and beyond. But
Yep.
that is an awesome way to close out the podcast. First and foremost, thank you, James, for coming on the podcast and talking about your life. We greatly appreciate it, man. For those who are still here at the end, we appreciate you for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe to this video. Check us out on Facebook and also on Instagram to see what else we're doing. We have tons of programs happening in the spring. So if you're a high schooler and you're interested in some STEM activities, please sure to check out 18 Richmond website for more details. As always, we host to Flow. My name's Steven. That's Marilyn. And our today's guest was James Shuler. And we will see you guys next time. Later, guys.
See ya.